Hi friends, welcome to the NPTEL course Strategy and Technology, a practical primer. We are in week 6 with the theme of structural analysis and competitive strategy. Over the last 5 weeks, we have understood, discussed, assimilated several concepts of structural analysis and competitive strategy. This included industry evolution, company strategy formation, and also various structural and strategic dimensions that impact this process. We also understood the power exerted by various stakeholders in a system, the economic forces framework that needs to be additionally considered, the competitive framework that we need to consider, and so on. In this series of 5 lectures in this week, we will try to integrate all of these things together in terms of one combined structural analysis and competitive strategy framework. In this lecture, which is the 26th in the series, we will focus on the topic of generic strategies. Generic competitive strategies are well propounded by Michael Porter. It was a unique contribution which was very simple but very effective. And most of the generic competitive strategies were linked to the product life cycle. The traditional product life cycle had a relatively high longevity. That is, a product once introduced could last for a decade or more. But today the technology is fast-paced. Products are multifunctional and life cycles are much shorter. Deploying technology and talent in such a manner that multiple industries are brought together under one roof is the latest value proposition that every company would like to have, and every user also would appreciate that. Depending on that, as we saw, based on the matrix of cost leadership and product differentiation, we can categorize the firms into 4 categories. The greater the proportion of firms with both differentiation and cost leadership, the greater are the prospects of a high growth industry that transforms society. What it means is that if a company is able to pursue simultaneously a product rich architecture along with a cost lean architecture, it would be in a winning position. Not only that, it will serve the society and the marketplace in a much more effective manner. It is therefore important for firms to pursue generic competitive strategies which not only provide mere competitive advantage over other firms but also contribute to the broader socio-economic wealth. The key frameworks that we considered in the past lectures are BCG matrix, that is the product portfolio analysis, the McKinsey business horizons approach, Prahlad's theory of co-competency, and Porter's generic competitive strategy framework. We also had additional frameworks such as GE matrix and so on. Balanced scorecard again was one topic which we considered in detail. The blue ocean strategy. In fact, whatever needs to be considered as part of strategic analysis in an evolved MBA program, we have considered as part of this lecture series so far. Porter's effective advocacy combined with the follower's preference for simplicity has made the generic competitive strategy a universally acclaimed as well as universally preferred strategic framework. But as I mentioned earlier, every company has got similar information sources, similar brain trust, and they have similar objectives. So how does a framework of just 3 competitive strategies work for such a large universe of firms? To be able to answer this question, we should understand the true meaning of generic strategies. 1. The generic strategies are those strategies which are philosophical in nature. The label indicates the dominant facet of the strategy of a firm. It doesn't represent the whole of the strategy of the firm, nor does it represent the competitive intensity or competitive strength of the firm. It is the way in which a company would like to proceed on its strategic trajectory. That is, whether I would like to be a cost leader, a featured leader, or a focused leader. These are the 3 philosophical questions strategically the company is trying to answer for itself. Structural analysis against this background improves the understanding of the firm for us, but generic strategies are the ones which will guide the firm towards superior performance. But the best strategy for a firm is a unique construction that reflects its particular circumstances. To be able to achieve that, a company has to do a very thorough and proper structural analysis of the industry, understand the competitive strategic options that are available to the firm, choose a few, and analyze how the right structure strategy fit can be achieved. The three generic strategies represent an elegant macro view. If you have to say that in the management jargon, a helicopter view or a 30,000 feet view, but they are not the soul and the whole of the strategic framework in implementation. This lecture therefore reviews the appropriateness of the rather simplistic approach that was rooted in the days of industrial economics and slower technological change, moving to a more dynamic evolution, which is reflecting the current technological change dimensions. So the three strategic dimensions, just to recap again for ourselves: overall cost leadership, overall differentiation, and focus. And they have to be internally consistent. Someone who is completely rooted to cost leadership may find it difficult to be a differentiated leader. Although ability to manage lean costs with high differentiation is a strategic skill which others may not be able to pursue. Similarly, wanting to be a focused niche player but wanting to be in all the markets of the world is not a feasible solution. You can only be present in certain segments of the market. The returns that a firm can reap through any of the three strategies or different shades of these strategies could range from acceptable to high, depending on the nature of the industry. Let's pictorially present these strategies. Cost leadership and differentiation are the foundational strategies. Scale, learning, controls, value engineering drive cost leadership, amongst many other factors. Differentiation is driven by design superiority, brand image, technology, dealer network, customer service. Let's not again confuse thinking that design superiority doesn't exist in companies with cost leadership. Suppose a company has got a capability to design components in such a manner that they are lighter but stronger, of lower cost materials but of higher strength quality, then that design superiority leads to cost leadership of that company. It may not lead to differentiation, but it leads to cost leadership. So we cannot think that one placement in one group doesn't mean that it cannot be present in a different author in a different group. So these are labels. We have to take these labels as indicative of the broader philosophy and broader direction, not nitpick on the words and their meanings with reference to these strategies. Focus would have buyer group, product segment, geographic market, and smart superiority as the key drivers. Within this, design and manufacturing are the two key dimensions that influence both cost leadership and differentiation. I have given you one example. Design superiority in differentiation means your ability to manufacture different featured products within your product lineup. But if your design superiority is such that you can use the same internal component clusters but create a broader range of products, that is another capability which combines certain amount of cost leadership into differentiation. Similarly, the manufacturing versatility, your ability to combine lean operations with flexible operations, is a skill that could bring you the advantages of differentiation as well as cost leadership. But within that, of course, one dominates the other. In the past, manufacturing used to get relegated to cost leadership to a greater degree, while design got related to differentiation to a greater degree. But today the relationships are much different. In today's world of technological change, there is no big difference between design superiority and manufacturing superiority. They all go hand in hand. Let's see what cost leadership entails in today's world. First of all, it gives the firm above average returns. A cost leader is the last person exit an industry, even if the industry is declining. And cost leadership is required to achieve high relative market share. And cost leadership is important because it helps the company to price the products low or price the products high. The low strategy is relevant when competitors are very many and they are also cost leaders. But price leadership, that is ability to price much higher than the cost, becomes relevant when there are not many competitors and there is surplus available in consumer hands which can be skimmed by the company. Cost leadership requires aggressive construction of scale efficient facilities. In the manufacture of passenger cars, for example, anything below 100,000 cars per annum is uneconomic. Therefore, aggressive construction of scale-efficient facilities is the first criterion for cost leadership. Vigorous pursuit of cost reduction from experience. That is, the more you do, the higher quality you have and the lower cost you entail. Apart from that, very tight cost and overhead control. Implementation of just-in-time systems, 5S systems, elimination of zero defects, zero waste, they all help in tight cost and overhead control. Elimination of discretionary items and connecting cost to value or cost to returns. These are all cost leadership attributes. Avoidance of marginal customer accounts, we can argue about that. In some cases, keeping the marginal customer accounts becomes important for the overall business portfolio. You can't go to a hospital and say that I will only provide this kind of medicines or I can support only these kinds of therapies. You got to be broad player. And cost minimization in expenses which traditionally take a lot of resources such as R&D, service, sales force, advertising and so on. And how do you do that in R&D? By ensuring better project management techniques, better planning of your experimentation and coordination between analysts and formulators or designers and prototype makers, for example. A great deal of managerial attention to cost control is necessary to achieve these aims. Low cost relative to competitors is the theme that you have to do. Low cost not within yourself. Low cost not compared to your past behavior or the budget. Low cost relative to competitors has to be run through the entire strategy and without ignoring quality, service and reputation. Zero waste, zero defects, avoidance of time and cost overruns and a host of other cost efficient approaches including value engineering support cost leadership. Typically, cost leadership is seen to accrue from operational excellence. But design and technology can also contribute significantly to cost leadership. It is cost leadership design. If you do design thinking for a solution and therefore you are able to get the right product with the right specification, it is shortening of the time to market and also being right to the market. By that process, you are in a position to get into more cost-effective manufacturing operations. So this is independent of the lean operations we were talking about. Design thinking is a cost leadership contribution. It could also be a differentiation contribution. This is a strategic dimension which works on two strategic groups as well. Cost leadership can be by design, as I said. How to have a least cost solution for a design? It has to be lean, but it must also be fit for the purpose. The foundations of cost leadership lie in good design. Overspeccing is avoided in cost leaders. Lean design principles, easily available materials, right engineering without over-engineering, modularity in design platform, avoiding gold-plated design are some of the attributes. In pharmaceuticals, particularly generic pharmaceuticals, when process chemistry is developed, people try to follow an expired process because it is easy to do, it is available, but that could add to a lot of costs. It could be a gold-plated process. Instead of that, you should try to understand how the evolution of raw materials and intermediates has taken place from the time the original process was invented and bring into place the best possible combinations that will make the process cheaper and also chemistry greener. And that would be the leadership quality of a great chemist. In the anxiety to be first to the market, a lot of latitude is given to the design department to develop a product without too much focus on cost principles, and that could be counterproductive for the company. The principles of value engineering have to be embedded in a company's design philosophy from the beginning. Computer-aided design with the right materials can support transition into additive manufacturing. This involves, as we know, zero waste of materials. Additive manufacturing starts from the product design, that is, segregation of items which can be rapidly prototyped and segregation of items which need to be produced by the conventional process. Even the entire prototype can be done through additive manufacturing so that you reduce the prototyping time from 1 year to 1 month. That is possible. So these are the design principles that need to be embedded into the design architecture of a firm so that cost leadership is ensured from the beginning. It is a talent-centric approach also. Unlike operational excellence, lean design requires talent that is not easily available. It tends to be very product-specific knowledge with new experimental principles. How to design an electric car which is native and is lighter weight because of the different configuration of the power pack. That is lean design from the zero principles or from zero base. But if you want to do the retrofitting initially and then try for native electric design, you may be first to market, but you are losing a whole lot of time in redoing the same product, rediscovering the wheel in a different way, and that leads to a lot of loss in investment costs for the company. In contrast to cost leadership, differentiation requires a different set of functional policies, and these make customers view the product or service as one that is unique or one that stands out from the clusters. So there are three aspects to differentiation. One, functional policies that are required for differentiation, that is the design or brand image, technology features, customer service, dealer network, exclusive vendors, and other dimensions. But there are also multiple dimensions based on which we can differentiate ourselves. We can call ourselves a premium luxury product with a premium dealer network with the right customer experience. This is a combination that transcends but also integrates the functional policies. When these two happen, the outcome will be above average to high margins because of the price premium that a differentiated product can earn. But this may also entail foregoing of scale and market share for such a product. As a strategy, differentiation requires superior skills in the targeted functions, be it product development or marketing, and not necessarily in manufacturing. Whatever be the functions, quality must be the common dimensions. If you want to be analyzed for the best fit possible of all the components, even manufacturing may be required. That is, manufacturing perfection could be a differentiator for a company. Why is Apple the very well acclaimed company? Because it is able to bring in design elegance along with manufacturing perfection, that is innovative perfection or perfect innovation as you may call, in one product or in one corporation. That's the strength of Apple. So we can bring in different functional policies at different levels and different grades based on the strengths and weaknesses of the company for an outcome which is superior to industry average. You can also do quasi-innovation. Just as quasi-integration is possible in the integration value chain, you can also do quasi-innovation. It may be a step or two lower than innovation, but it is very good differentiation. There could be certain aspects of an innovated product that could be redesigned or manufactured and delivered better. Example, a differentiated drug. An already innovated therapeutic pathway exists, but it can be differentiated in terms of superior potency of the medicine, lower side effects, that is, and lower adverse effects. That is possible. So an innovative product is differentiated further. You can have a differentiated refrigerator, and we have seen examples also, from one door to multi-door configuration, from non-convertible to convertible, and several other accessories that can be integrated with the refrigerator, from yogurt making to water providing. And also diagnostics to discover viral load, and also antiviral and antibacterial treatments. These are the differentiations that are possible in refrigerator. And IoT controls, IoT sensors, when they are integrated into the refrigerator, it would lead to another trajectory of differentiated refrigeration. A differentiated automobile can come principally by IC engine to electric battery vehicle change, but multi-hybrid, comprising electric fuel cell and hydrogen power packs in one configuration, that could be one game-changing automobile. Similarly, solar-powered automobiles, flying automobiles, they all could be highly differentiated automobiles which could be very different from the way the automobiles are perceived, designed and manufactured. For every single innovation, there would be multiple differentiators, and each will be addressing different functionalities and user experiences through different prisms. Just as innovation is required to open up a market space, differentiation is required to broaden up the market space even further. The third one is focus. That is, you have certain attributes of cost leadership or differentiation, but they are not too strong to be applicable universally. So focus strategy prioritizes and addresses the needs of a chosen market segment, product group or a specific social need in a very highly concentrated manner. Example, specific strategies that serve a chosen target such as buyer group, product family, geography. In-depth Strategies remain fixed with the chosen niche, with constantly improving technology being deployed to serve the niche better. Suppose you are a designer and developer shoes for athletes. You may decide to stay only in that space, which minimizes the pressure on the joints, pressure on the knees, enables you better grip, and those are the design principles, not the principles which help walking shoes. So there could be a kind of association with that particular chosen niche, and design of product, delivery of the product is tied to that chosen niche. Dominance, therefore, the focus strategy must secure clear dominance and brand equity for the firm in the marketplace. Otherwise, there is no point of having niche or focus. If you don't get dominance in the chosen product or the chosen market group, you could even be relegated to the lower place. Effective communication of the differentiated features enables dominance to some extent, but continued product innovation, continued marketing innovation requires some skills which are characteristic of niche strategy. So how do we define niche? We can define niche in terms of the price. I'm a luxury product company, premium product company, budget company, discount. Ginger hotels have a niche in terms of serving the budget needs. Taj Ultimate Palace hotels have a niche in terms of being luxury hotels. Demographics, gender, age, income level, education level. You can cater only to the stationary needs of students, or you can cater to the stationary needs of the businesses as well. Depending on that, your copier papers, your normal papers change in their texture, in their GSM and other factors. The level of quality, premium, fit for purpose or economical. Psychographics, that is the values, interests, attitudes and esteem needs for which the products and services are made. Geographics, that is only for the residents of a certain country, our home country, city or even neighborhood. In focus strategy, all the functional strategies are developed around serving that target which we choose. It enables above average returns and involves, however, a trade-off between profitability and sales volume, while it may or may not involve trade-off with the overall cost position. Examples of focus are many. Companies following the focus strategy are not tempted to deviate from the niche positioning strategy, irrespective of the overall growth in the market or the growth in other non-focus product or market segments. If Fitbit started as a health band or a health tracker, so much demand has arisen in cellular phones and other smart devices. Has Fitbit swerved from that original focus? No, it remained focused on fitness vitals. Only thing was that the scope began to increase with technology available. Now it has added coaching and artificial intelligence for a proactive well-being companion role. We have Rolls-Royce cars. Those cars remained committed to super luxury segment and high performance. The Rolls-Royce company never attempted to deviate from the chosen niche of high technology and high esteem. Organic products. Again, another niche. Companies are committed to only organic produce. They don't clutter their product space with non-organic products. Although those markets offer much larger growth potential, they stand committed to organic. Muse Wearables, a startup incubated by IIT Madras alumni and an NIT alumnus. It is a startup and it stood committed to premium analog watch style with digital core. And it created new fitness verticals such as MuseQ rather than alter the core product. Kimberly-Clark, it's a global company which is devoted to the niche of hygiene products, and it hasn't swerved from that focus. It is an integrated product and market focus on family and hygiene essentials, of course including business hygiene. Nintendo is another company. It's a gaming company committed to gaming products despite the ability to leverage into other adjuncts, focus on creative entertainment, including addictive gaming. Companies that are focused on niche do not feel threatened by other competitors operating at higher scales in other market segments. They do not measure themselves by either the scale or scope of the other competitors. They do not think that being confined to a niche means being relegated in a future evolution of the industry, because they have the ability to make continuous improvements in their products and services and provide the customers with secure and strong services. Bose, which has specialized in high purity acoustic components, is an example again of this focus or niche strategy. It hasn't really gone into mass market electronics devices of different varieties. These three generic strategies are alternative viable approaches to dealing with competitive forces. It is necessary for companies to have one predominant philosophy, while shades of the other two strategies would definitely be there as part. A company which is stuck in the middle will not be able to follow a cost leadership position or a differentiated position. It will not be able to follow even a focus position, because it is trying to toggle amongst all these strategies, and the requirements to create each of these positions is different, as we have seen. And inability to follow any of the three generic strategies and as an overriding philosophy is almost a guaranteed route to low profitability and eventual decline. Therefore, a firm must make a fundamental strategic decision to adopt one of the three generic strategies, but almost inevitably faces an uphill task in ascertaining which generic strategy is better suited for the company, and also if after a generic strategy is chosen, whether the company should bring in the elements of the other two generic strategies or move entirely to a new generic strategy. This analysis is a major skill. It is a core competence of an organization to be able to strategize in this manner. The goal of all firms is to grow, and growth can be achieved only through competitive advantage. It is a concept that is propounded strongly not only in the original book of competitive strategy but in the other two subsequent books. Competitive advantage is the ability of a firm to utilize its attributes and resources such that it has a superior and sustainable position in the industry or the market relative to its competitors. It is an important definition that we must keep. It is the ability of a firm to utilize its competencies, attributes and resources such that it has a superior and sustainable position in the industry or the marketplace relative to its competitors. The three generic strategies are expected to provide the firm with a strategic approach to gain competitive advantage. However, any knowledge that is available at a generic level and accessible by every firm hardly provides the wherewithal to generate a firm-specific competitive advantage. Therefore, we must go beyond Porter's generic competitive strategies and drill down to get the kind of generic competitive strategies which are more specific to our company. In today's competitive world, any industry or market is typically composed of several players, many of them well endowed with resources and capabilities. Nothing stops a company being differentiated. Nothing also stops a company from being cost leader. Therefore, to assume that firms can easily achieve competitive advantage through the pursuit of these three simple strategic formulations is somewhat simplistic. More complex factors are usually at play, which we need to identify and analyze. We have to move from non-proprietary to proprietary as part of this. Strategy formulation also has to be proprietary to the firm. What we read in the book alone cannot be the strategy. We have to develop a strategic framework which is relevant to our firm, and we should be able to do our own approaches. That's why I keep suggesting several approaches which are far beyond what Porter has suggested, be it the dimensioning of features, or be it the competitor clusters, be it the inside out to outside in or outside in to inside out trade-off. These are all the new constructs that are proposed in this series of lectures for you to move from a non-proprietary situation to proprietary situation, even in strategy formulation. So commodity-like marketing of simplistic strategic prescriptions would make good reading but could spell bad businesses, because whatever you are doing, everybody else also can do, probably is already doing. So the underlying determinants of competitive strategy are not simple and superficial factors like scale and features, which are important, but they are visible for everybody. We need something which is more complex and embedded competencies. These are technology and talent. These are not visible for others. These get known only after the products come out, or when the product is converted, or when the design takes place through people efforts. So these are the ones which we really need to focus. That's why this connectivity between strategy and technology that is being proposed through this course. We are in the strategy part of this course, but technology and talent are very much visible as we discuss these aspects. So the transformation of the generic competitive strategies into firm-specific competitive advantage can occur only through integration of technology and talent in strategy formulation. What is visible, as I said, structure is visible, so we conduct structural analysis of the industry. Strategy is appealing, therefore we follow one of the three generic competitive strategies. Financial viability is extremely important, so we understand our structure strategy match so that we are viable. But what is embedded? Embedded is the level of technology that is resident in our company, the level of talent that is available for our company, and the intellect that is beyond talent that can create new capabilities and new competencies. The embedded characteristics of a firm's DNA, namely technology, talent, and intellect, are the key drivers of sustainable competitive advantage, not the three generic strategies. They are a useful starting point, but not the ultimate destinations in strategy formulation. The ultimate destinations and the levers in the strategy formulation are technology, talent, and intellect. Let's look at the technology and talent interrelationship. In the past, the traditional product life cycle had higher longevity, as I said, 10 years, 20 years, because the pace of innovation was slow, consumer needs were stable, tastes were not fickle, brand loyalties were steady, switching costs were high, and industry rivalry was comfortable. But today, exact opposite of all of this is happening. Technology in particular is fast-paced, not only because of R&D expenditure, which gets both incremental and breakthrough innovations, but also because several base technologies are continuously being developed to be licensed and integrated with product technologies. Even as we struggle with electric battery production with cobalt, companies are trying to see how more easily available materials can be used for electric batteries. So there are far too many moving pieces of the puzzle, and puzzles themselves are many in today's technological situation. This, coupled with multifunctionality of products, provides a great bandwidth for firms to attempt differentiation like never before. So if you look at what Salesforce surveyed and presented as its results, the fourth industrial revolution is in full swing. The percentage of customers who believe that the following technologies will transform their expectations of companies would surprise us. Indigo color indicates already transformed. Blue color indicates actively transforming. The light blue shade indicates will transform within 5 years. 87% believe that cybersecurity is actively transforming or already transformed. Artificial intelligence, respective percentages are 14% and 37%. IoT, 20% and 40%. Cloud computing, 29% and 39%. Voice activated PS, personal assistance, 20% and 38%. Virtual augmented reality, 15%, 34%. Chatbots, 15 and 35. Blockchain, 11 and 30. Cryptocurrencies, 14 and 30. So there is a huge level of alignment and endorsement that modern digital 4.0 technologies are already transforming or have already transformed the industries, and more is yet to come within the next 5 years. The central themes of a sustainable strategy for a contemporary firm are innovation and differentiation rather than just scale and cost. Niche has a role when it is judiciously mingled with technology and creativity. So how do we do this technology and talent paradigm work? How do we ensure that this technology and talent paradigm works in a company? We can't relegate scale and cost completely. They go together with innovation and differentiation. The only point is that innovation and differentiation come first. Without these, trying to think of a scale or a cost level is somewhat putting the cart before the horse. Two streams of strategic development are possible with technology. Continuous upgrade approach, that is improve products, improve process, incremental benefits at low investment and any periodicity. If you want to improve the product tomorrow, do it. If you want to do it for after 10 months, you do it. It all depends upon the availability of technology and your ability to put the technology to use with limited investments. The other is the transformative approach. Breakthrough technologies, new products and processes, major benefits at high investments, and episodic or periodic. Today, Even before one transformative approach is set to occupy the mainstream, other transformative approaches are coming in, and that leads to greater war for technology talent. The challenge is to harness technology and talent and investment such that despite a shortening product life cycle and a lengthening investment cycle, not this, product life cycle is shortening, investment cycle is lengthening, but product and service development has to ensure viability for a company, and therefore we have to follow one of the two streams. Example here. The consequent demands on talent management being many, we have to have a properly attuned talent base. We had insulins in vials, but then we have also developed insulins from mammalian cell culture to E. coli and now to various other cell structures. So the level of accomplishment that existed in the academic field was utilized by the industry to take the insulins to higher level. The graph below shows that the first ever insulin, that is the aspart, glulicin and lispro, had an activity level of just 4 to 5 hours. These are short acting insulins. Then came regular insulins, which had an activity level of 6 to 8 hours. Plasma insulin levels are plotted on the y-axis. Then came the NPH, which had lower peak level of insulin but a longer spread. Then came the detimirs with 14 hours. Then came glargins with 24 hours. But there is always a trade-off. That is the level of plasma insulin that you can bring in versus the number of hours you want the insulin effect to stay. But you can see that the glargin is not as efficient as aspart in terms of the glycemic load which immediately comes when you take a carbohydrate based food. If innovation can bridge this gap, that is have an insulin which within 2 hours has the characteristics of a short acting insulin but later on goes into a glargin mode, that is the final contribution it can make based on the current technology. But if the body has a sensor system by whatever means, could be nanotechnology or any other methodology of adding a supplemental insulin tablet, let's say, of ensuring that every time you take something, this 2 hour aspart characteristic kicks in, then that is the ultimate what you require. It's almost like a diabetes control pump, wherein sugar levels and the insulin absorption are constantly matched with each other. So these are the kinds of innovations that are possible. Because of these kinds of innovations, there is a spurt in insulin usage, and more recently in terms of the long-acting insulin types. It also relates in fact to the reduction in the pain and discomfort caused to the patient while administering insulin injections by developing shorter, thinner and less painful insulin needles. But innovation did not end there. It has to continue. It is the combination of the device and the product. The development of cartridges was the first step in making administration of insulin less painful, more convenient and more hygienic. But it went further up when insulin pens were created, wherein you had a meterable insulin administration and you can carry it as easily as you would carry your normal pen. So the higher scale came with the underlying need for higher investments also. That is, you no longer are just maker of insulin, you are also a maker of a combined drug device combination. The challenge therefore is one of deploying technology and talent to bring these two industries under one roof and provide users with enhanced value proposition. But along with this, you also needed a technology by which refrigerated storage was not required. What is the point in developing this as a pen if somebody could not carry it in his pocket? So you also needed an insulin which was not requiring 2 to 8 degrees centigrade as in the past, but was okay for a 25 to 30 degrees room ambient temperature. That is the further development which was happening in terms of insulin discovery, development and delivery. All this requires multidisciplinary research, tie-ups with the different divisions of universities and research institutions, and an open approach to technology licensing. Not to mention the linkage between the device part of the industry and the drug part of the industry. And when all of that happens, you have a transformational amalgam of technology and talent happening, and then the industry itself will be transformed and the patient will be better served. We have also discussed, as in the previous slide, but elsewhere, that cost leadership and differentiation could be possessed together by a company. What we have discussed as the insulin pen example, it negates actually Porter's singular generic competitive strategy model. It also reinforces the need for a new paradigm that fuses both cost leadership and product differentiation approaches. Fundamentally, the new paradigm which I am proposing here considers cost leadership occurring not in terms of single price competitive numbers, but in terms of broad cost bands. This approach allows firms to be categorized as leaders or followers on the cost dimensions. Similarly, product differentiation is not seen just in terms of features. It is seen in terms of transformational or incremental innovation. This enables firms to be categorized similarly on product differentiation from leader or follower. Once you do that, you can categorize firms in terms of 4 categories, each providing relevant value propositions. You can have companies which are leaders in cost leadership or followers in cost leadership. That is, the level of cost leadership is either low or high. Similarly, you can have companies which are either low or high in terms of differentiation. So if there is a company which is low on cost leadership and low on differentiation, that company will be weak, low share, low scale, low returns, little research and little investments. On the other hand, if a company is high on cost leadership but is low on differentiation, it is becoming commoditized, declining scale, average returns, low research, low innovations, low investments. Let us look at a company which is low on cost leadership but very high on differentiation. Then niche strategy starts kicking in. Niche player, healthy returns, good research, good innovation, medium investments. And our ideal is high on cost leadership and high on differentiation. Then that company would be high share, high scale, high return, high research, high innovation and high investment company. This graphic provides us a snapshot of the cost leadership differentiation matrix. It is a very helpful analytical matrix for arriving at appropriate generic strategies. A differentiation leader who is also a cost leader achieves high market share rapidly and enters a virtuous cycle of share and scale, feeding more research and innovation. You come up with a highly differentiated product which is also cost effective. Then obviously you gain market share, your volumes increase at an exponential pace, then you kick in more profits for the company, and that in turn feeds more research and innovation, enables the company to develop more products of this nature. Such a firm truly masters the strategy of mass customization or the enviable task of offering the most differentiated product to the largest base of consumers. As I already said, Apple is a classic example. A differentiation leader but a cost follower is a niche player with low share and scale but high acceptability. Jaguar and Rolls-Royce fall in this category. They are highly differentiated but they are not cost leaders. They are just cost followers. They are niche players having low share and scale but very high acceptability in their zones. A cost leader but differentiation follower would usually start with an initial advantage of scale but would quickly find that the intrinsic inability to reap above average returns severely limits its ability to invest in research for innovation. What it means is that a cost leader but lagging in terms of differentiation will not be able to attract market forever. Therefore, the returns will be industry average or industry minus. As a result, the ability to invest in improvements will be rather limited for that cost leader who is also not having some level of differentiation. Many firms in emerging markets and late starters in advanced markets fall in this bracket, mimicking technology trends through technological followership but not coming up with the differentiation. Many Chinese firms followed this strategy but quickly upgraded themselves. 15 years ago, nobody thought that HTC would be able to design and develop its own Apple phone kind of phones. Nobody thought that Chinese assemblers would be able to develop their own designs. But Chinese companies did that because they moved in right time from mimicking technology to developing their own technology. They moved away from technological followership. They moved away from the models of contract manufacture to design, develop and manufacture products and even brand them by themselves. The fourth cluster of products or differentiation and cost followers, they have obviously the low capability for achieving any type of competitive advantage. Firms specializing in commodity and generic products, whether in advanced or emerging markets, as I said, exemplify this non-value adding cluster. We have to move into the value adding clusters. We may not go from the bottom left to the right top quadrant immediately, but we can make this progression based on the strengths and weaknesses we have. So each of the 4 clusters described above or earlier has a unique bearing on industry evolution and its impact on the society. If we have in our industry or in the economy a greater proportion of firms with both differentiation leadership and cost leadership, the greater will be the prospect of the development of a high growth industry that will transform the society. The greater the proportion of firms with differentiation leadership and cost followership, the greater the propensity of a sunrise industry. The greater the proportion of firms with cost leadership and differentiation followership, the greater the likelihood of the industry turning mature and needing the impetus of transformational inputs. The greater the proportion of firms with both cost followership and differentiation followership, the greater the risk of a terminally declining industry. So we can choose as a nation the kind of goals we must have at an individual firm level and at an industry level in terms of differentiation leadership and cost leadership. If we want to be at some point of time in future number 2 or number 1 economy in the world, clearly we need to have a significant proportion of firms which have both differentiation leadership and cost leadership. This is not to say that the other 3 categories are not required or should not be taken. Other 3 categories are also required because the society and the pyramid of incomes has to be served in multiple ways. But the driver, the one which provides the tractive force, is the one which will have both differentiation leadership and cost leadership. Sunrise industries can become high growth industries by mastering cost leadership, but mature industries would need to reinvent themselves from time to time on both cost leadership and differentiation to prevent slippage into terminal decline. So from moving a state of generic industry to a state of specific industry is what generic competitive strategy is about. Generic competitive strategies provide a broad framework for companies to achieve competitive superiority, but they don't give industry leadership all by themselves. I have demonstrated in this lecture the drill down that is required to make generic competitive strategies specific to the companies and special in the industries. Generic strategies are simple, elegant and popular, but technologies, user needs and global shifts are fast changing. Therefore, there is reduced utility in the current and emerging context of a very simple construct of 3 generic competitive strategies. From cost leadership and differentiation as alternatives, we need an integrated strategy which has shades of differentiation and cost leadership. You can have differentiation as the predominant type of strategy, but you should have cost leadership also in grade. You can be choosing to be a cost leader, but you should know how to differentiate your products to ensure that your level of production and your level of market delivery provides above average industry returns. And to be able to do this combination, which is conceptually elegant, analytically feasible, and in terms of implementation, it is commercially possible, we should have a right combination of technology and talent. Then we will have cost-effective differentiation. An integrated competitive strategy would not only provide sustainable competitive advantage for a firm, but also will determine a more fundamental and epochal industry evolution. That's the importance of transforming from generic competitive strategy to specific competitive strategy, from seeing how we can best develop an alchemy of the strategies that we have discussed so far. Thank you.